Before we get started, I want to tell you about my experience with Own It Fitness. Own It Fitness is a place that helped me discover my fitness goals. They did a full evaluation of my physical condition, and they set out a plan for me to be able to meet my goals. And on top of that, they found a way to be able to work with my busy schedule. And they can do that for you as well. Own It Fitness is the perfect place for professionals to find the friends that they need to help them meet their physical goals. If you're looking for a place that can help you, if you're looking for a place that's friendly and a place that will help you confidently meet the physical goals that you have for yourself, then check out Own It Fitness. They're on the corner of Maury and Blakeow. This episode has been brought to you by Fremont Bank. Fremont Bank has been serving people and businesses in our community for over 60 years. For more information about the Fremont Bank, check out episode 104 on the Fremont Podcast. This episode has also been brought to you by Minutemen Press. If you are looking for design or printing needs, reach out to them. Let them know you heard about them on the Fremont Podcast. They'll give you 20% off on your first order. Banter Bookshop is your local go-to for all your reading resources. If they don't have it on the shelf, you can ask them and they can order it for you. Check them out on Capitol Avenue. Let them know that you heard about them on the Fremont Podcast. If you are looking to buy or sell a home, check out Petrocelli Homes on Niles Boulevard.
I ride my bike everywhere, right? That's my main form of transportation. That and transit, BART, trains, etc. And I think that's like a good thing for people to have that option, right? I'm not saying everyone needs to sell their car,
right.
but I think I'm really passionate about thinking, hey, we should at least make that a viable choice for people.
Right.
Coming to you straight from Fremont, California, this is the Fremont Podcast, dedicated to telling the stories of the past and present of the people and places of the city of Fremont, one conversation at a time.
It's a little past 5 in the evening. The wind is picking up, and I am at the Alameda Creek Regional Trail. And as beautiful as it is out here, with the water, the sunlight, and the wildlife, there's an egret. As beautiful as it is out here, this is an example of an enforcement quagmire in Fremont. If that egret were up here on the trail and committed a crime, the police department within the East Bay Regional Park District would get involved. A few feet down the slope, if the egret landed here and committed the same crime, the Fremont police would have to get involved. And if the egret landed down here in the creek itself, the enforcement would come from the Alameda County Water District. With 3 enforcement bodies in less than 100 feet, enforcement can be complicated, to say the least. And seemingly, those 3 enforcement bodies want to make really sure that the violation, the crime, is happening on their part and not one of the other 2. As a resident, it makes it a little difficult to report things. If you were to see someone littering or, more importantly, dumping toxic material into the water supply, someone harassing the wildlife, simply someone trespassing, and while taking a swim where you shouldn't is probably not a priority, if it were any more serious, like back in the drought when we had the rubber dam slashed, lost all that water, if someone had seen it while it was happening, and the follow-up question was, where exactly on the slope are they? At any rate, with a little empathy, I'm sure that much jurisdictional division makes it difficult for everybody. That egret just landed on a rock in the middle of the creek, and you are listening to episode 117 of the Fremont Podcast.
Now, here's your host, Ricky B.
I'm going to introduce you. I'm with Daniel, and how do you say your last name?
Karpelevitch.
Karpolevitch. Okay.
Good luck with that.
So Daniel, you and I met when I worked at REI. So we ran into each other recently at Billy Roy's for an event there. But I remember you looked familiar because I worked there and I sold camping gear and cycling gear and all the stuff. And I remember you being a regular customer. And so when I recognized you at Billy Roy's, I was like, wait a minute. I haven't seen him in a while. So that was kind of cool. But when we met at REI, you were into hiking, backpacking, all that stuff.
Yeah, and
cycling.
Then
cycling. Did you start doing that young, or was that something that started later on?
So my intro to cycling was road cycling. And I think one of my friends in high school, or actually a friend from middle school that I knew in middle school, and then we went to different schools, and we were hanging out, and he had started cycling. He was like, hey, let's go on a bike ride. And so I took my dad's old kind of crappy road bike, and it was too big for me, and I didn't really know. I mean, I knew how to ride a bike, but I wasn't
sure.
I didn't know how to ride well, or have any. I mean, I was fit, but I wasn't. I was 14. I was a scrawny little kid. I wasn't really into cycling, and we, me and two other friends, it was a group of three of us, and we kind of fell in love with it over a summer. I think maybe between freshman and sophomore year in high school, and we just started riding a whole bunch all around, and then we actually capped that off with a bike ride from Fremont to Lake Tahoe.
Oh my! Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah. I think it's 200 something miles. We did it over 5 days.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, those Sierra Nevadas. I think we had one whole day where we did nothing but go up.
Wow.
For the whole day.
Wow, that's crazy.
After that, I was hooked. Yeah.
How old were you?
I think I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was 14. I was a between freshman and sophomore
year. And who all
year.
were you with?
Me and two of my friends. I think
were they also 14 and 15?
I think maybe they were a year older. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And one of their dads drove behind us in his minivan with food and snacks and stuff. And
that's cool. You got obviously into cycling, riding races and stuff like that, and you came here to this interview today riding a bike.
Yeah.
Pretty cool bike.
Yeah. Not a road bike.
Not a road bike.
Not a race bike.
Hybrid.
I'd call it a city bike.
Okay,
maybe
a
commuter bike.
Okay.
Yeah. After high school, racing just became, it's 6 days a week of training, 12 hours a week of, riding, and not just fun riding necessarily. Yeah. It's you're doing repeats, you're doing sets up and down a hill. Yeah. You're doing sprints and workouts, and you have a schedule, and it and that's just to be at the base level of competitiveness. That's not oh, I'm an elite athlete. I was just I'm having fun, basically.
That's cool.
And I started going to Ohlone, and life got in the way. So I've kept riding. It's ebbed and flowed, but racing is probably not in the cards for me in the near future. I like to say I'm retired.
There you go.
I'm a retired racer.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, but I fell in love with I'll say biking, not cycling, but just riding a bike. Okay. Right. That's my current love. Yeah. I still have a road bike. I still ride it with the race team. I still ride it with, FFBC, which is the local cycling club. But nowadays, my passion is really just for riding to the grocery store, to the coffee shop, to work, to the train station, to see family and friends. That's what I'm really more interested in now. And now I have a bike that, kind of is reliable, and it's got a belt drive, and it's got fenders, and it's, comfy to
ready to go. Yeah. Take the city. That's cool. You're a part of a commission, volunteer commission. Yeah. That was one of the things that kind of connected us, because you were at Billy Roy's at an event, and you had heard about it through the city promotion and stuff like that. But I thought it was interesting to have you. I wanted to have you on the podcast just to kind of catch up as somebody who lives here in Fremont. But in our discussions and everything, what is your position when it comes to like speaking for your commission or for the city or anything like that?
So I absolutely do not speak for the city. I don't speak for the mobility commission. Everything I'm sharing is just my own personal thoughts and opinions.
So I like the distinction then that you made between cycling and then you like riding your bike or bike riding or whatever, biking. So what does that mean for you? What does that look like for you? Like, if it's something that you fell in love with, you have a passion for, like what kind of things do you love about riding your bike in the city? I know you said you like going to the grocery store and all of that. And then maybe coupled with that, like what are some of the things that you find to be a joy about riding in the city of Fremont versus things that maybe are not so great about riding in the city of Fremont?
Yeah, so I fell in love with just the idea of like being able to get around, powered by myself, my own 2 feet or my own 2 legs.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of, obviously being good for the environment, right? Like being good for, safety, public safety, air pollution. Those things are very important to me. I also just like have been, had my eyes open to the, the negative effects of car ownership, car use. I don't own a car anymore. So I still own a motorcycle. That's my backup. I barely ride it. I ride my bike everywhere, right? That's my main form of transportation. That and, transit, BART, trains, etc. And I think that's like a good thing for people to have that option, right? I'm not saying everyone needs to sell their car,
right.
but I think I'm really passionate about thinking, hey, we should at least make that a viable choice for people.
Right. We'll be right back. You can hear the rest of this conversation in just a moment. I want to tell you about Minuteman Press in Irvington. They are your quality printer to go to here in Fremont. I have personally worked with them before, and I find their services to be fantastic. Look no further than Minuteman Press in Irvington. You can find them at 44141 Fremont Boulevard in Fremont.
The Ohlone College Flea Market is happening every second Saturday of the month from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Ohlane's Fremont campus. Can I ask you, what are you hoping to find today?
It's just interesting to see what's out there, and you never know what you'll find.
Treasures.
Hey, Van, if people want to contact you, how do they get in touch?
So our phone number is 510-659-6285, and the email is fleamarket@ohlone.edu. More information can be found at ohlone.edu/flea-market.
And now, back to our conversation. I have a kind of a souped up e-bike that I use for getting around on, like when I need to get somewhere fast, and I don't have a vehicle because my wife's using the car, then I use this, and I actually can take that onto the BART. I've taken that out to Mountain View and Sunnyvale and other places, just taking it on the transit lines. But then I can also get around here pretty well on it. But I also have a pedal bike that's just, man powered, that I use for both exercise and for commuting if I need to. If the time is not the issue, then I enjoy riding that and getting the exercise in that as well. There are certain things. There's certain places around Fremont that I think are remarkable when it comes to biking.
Absolutely.
But there's also some places we were just talking about before we were even recording about. There were some places that were not so enjoyable when it comes to biking.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about, like, what are some of the things that Fremont has done that you've seen growing up here, and as you've gotten into cycling, what are some of the things that Fremont's done that's been good for biking, for people who want to get out and would rather commute by bike than drive cars?
Yeah, I mean, something that happened before, I was born, before, most of us were born, is like Alameda Creek Trail. Like that's a gold star example of like fantastic infrastructure. That's, it's a whole big long trail, right? It has underpasses under highways and roads. It connects, people very safely, right? It's completely separated from traffic. Things like that, very hard to build these days, right? There's not enough room. There's not enough money to build, big underpasses and bridges and that sort of thing. So that's kind of, the focus has been more on making the streets and the roads safer. And I make that distinction between streets and roads purposefully. Roads are kind of the bigger ones, right? Multiple lanes. The point is to get people from point A to point B, right?
Like Mission Boulevard, Fremont,
Paseo Padre,
Okay.
Maori, those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
And we have, tons of them. But the thing is, like, they're not always very safe. So things have like Walnut Avenue, right? That was a big project over 5 years ago.
Yeah, there's
now.
like a video out with like drone shots and everything of that being like a kind of like an example of what like a good biking infrastructure would look like.
It really is, yeah. So that's one of those things, right? It's on like the bikeways are elevated, right? So they're completely protected from cars, just like a sidewalk is, right? And more importantly, the intersections are protected, because you'll often see bike lanes, especially in Fremont. You'll still see them definitely, but oftentimes in kind of cities that kind of want to just check a box.
Yeah,
say we put in a bike lane. They'll put in a bike lane on the roadways, and then as soon as it gets to an intersection, it just ends.
Yeah,
and intersections are like the most dangerous parts, right? So many crashes happen right at intersection, or when people are turning and merging and all these sorts of things. So having protected intersections, like what you see on Walnut, and they're building them in more places now in Fremont, those make it really, really safe. And we have tons of opportunities for trails that are, that we could have, that we could build, right, on like water corridors, like water pipe, or, electrical line corridors, or old railways, that sort of thing.
That's actually one of the things that I've enjoyed. I mentioned it on a previous episode. I'm trying to remember which one I mentioned it on, but one of the things that I enjoy about going the bike route, like riding a bike from place to place, is that when I put my phone up and I pull up the GPS and I put in like the cycling option, like I even coming back from like Mountain View or Sunnyvale, or like even I've been out to like Union Landing here in Union City, and I'm like, take me to Union Landing on a bike. There's this whole like San Francisco, like, I don't know what it's called, San Francisco like Creek Trail or something like that. I didn't even know it existed. And like it says, on the GPS, it was like, take this shared trail, or this Creek San Francisco Creek Trail, and I was like, this is the coolest trail. Like I really fun. But then when I got down to like Santa Clara and Sunnyvale and stuff, there's like all these aqueducts that have these trails along there that are just super fun to ride on, and they're just really safe and comfortable to ride on. And so I think you're exactly right. Like Alameda Creek Trail is a gem that we have, where a lot of people can get out there and ride and walk, or whatever, and have it be a protected area that gets you around. If you're wanting. If that's where you want to go. If it happens
to be on your route,
right?
If you're trying to go through central Fremont, like you're going to be on a road. Because even the streets, the smaller streets, they don't really connect, right? We're kind of little islands of neighborhoods connected by these big roads. And so, seeing things like Walnut Avenue is a really, really, awesome development. And I know the city has been, working on those kinds of things all throughout. And I've heard a lot of, opposition to it, but I think once people actually start to, use it and start to ride it, and it really sells people on it.
It's interesting. There's like an organization called Blue Zones. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was something that another person that I interviewed on the podcast a couple years ago, Liz Ames, she is she just got reelected as the BART director for this particular area. She worked for Palo Alto and helped design like their walking pedestrian areas, their cycling areas, the city layout. She also worked for a little while in Union City, but now she works for BART. But she was really influenced by the blue zones and the people who write for blue zones and do. But I say all that to say they do a big studies about these blue zone cities, and these are like really, really happy places where people just they love living there. Like for like one of the cities, if I can't remember, I remember correctly, one of the cities that they focused on that was just like a really great place for people to live. I think it was like Pismo Beach or like Santa Lucia Obispo or something like that. And one of the things that they highlight that they say that really makes a happy place for people to live is the ability to get around on a bicycle. Like riding a bike is like a big thing that helps make the people that live in a particular city like happy. Yeah. And so I think it is interesting that even though we've been ranked the happiest city in America for, for the last 3 years, I do think that it's interesting that we still get opposition about creating the kind of infrastructure that would allow for better bike travel around the city. Because I do think that would, if we really leaned into that, I know I'm getting into some opinion here, but if we really leaned into that as a city, it might actually continue to fortify that opinion that we are that one of the happiest cities to live in America.
I think being a city where someone or a lot of people feel safe riding a bike, I think that's not necessarily the thing that makes people happy. It might make someone like me happy, right? Sure. But I recognize I'm an outlier, right? But I think a city where people feel safe riding a bike, that's like an indicator of like other things that are harder to measure of how happy that city is.
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah,
I would say probably the same thing as being a walkable city, right? It's the same thing. It goes hand in hand, right? If you're somewhere that's easy to walk, right, somewhere it's also going to be somewhere that's easy to bike as well. Yeah,
which I'm going to throw this out there as one of my own opinions, but it's one of the reasons why I think that Fremont ought to lean more into helping their districts develop as a city of districts, as opposed to trying to unify us around like one particular downtown area. Like I think we ought to give strength to our individual districts. Let the people be able to walk around Niles, which I think Niles is probably the best example of one of our districts that's really owned that. But then, the people that live in Mission San Jose, let's really lean into that being a hub where people can walk and bike to and get to all the places that they need to get. And what about same thing with Centerville and Warm Springs and Irvington? Yeah. If we were to help make those hubs like really strong places where people can walk, foot traffic, ride their bikes, and all of that, I think it would actually do good for our city.
Absolutely.
And trying to build up that ability to walk and commute and feel safe doing all of that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we started as those 5 little villages, small little towns, right? And I think you can still see the bones of that left. If you go through Irvington or through Centerville, like through that main streets of those little villages, you still see the remnants of that kind of like small, dense, bustling little town where people weren't driving their cars around in 1901 or whatever, right? Whenever those cities were around. Yeah. Before World War II, right? When Fremont was founded.
I think that Niles actually just celebrated or they have like their birth date. I can't remember. But it's like close to 150 years old or something like that. So you're exactly right.
I mean, nowhere is it more obvious than Niles, right? Because here it's not just the main street that still has that remnants of density, but you go out 2 or 3 blocks all the way to the park, and it's the house lots are small, right? And it's dense. It's not these giant parking lots and giant super wide streets, right? It's actually meant for humans, right? It's on a human scale, not just purely prioritizing like the movement of cars as fast as possible.
That's good. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, one of the areas that we talked about as being problematic, I like to come to Niles, but to ride my bike with my family, if I take Maury all the way down, I have to go under these 2 railroad underpasses that are they're horrible for. I mean, even driving a car down there can feel a little scary if but to ride a bike down there, and especially I have kids that I'm trying to protect, so it's not easy to get from where I live. I mean, I'm probably I would say for sure less than a mile, but probably
less than half a mile.
Less than half of a mile from where I live right now. But I have to go way out of my way to find a way around in order just to get down to Niles here. But the reason I'm bringing that up is I just want it to be noted that it's problematic.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that is frustrating. But the other thing is that when I was saying that, you made a note to me that this was something that we were talking about before we started recording. I said, I either have to go all the way down to the walking bridge or the bike bridge that's down across the Alameda Creek Trail, down by Quarry Lakes, or we have to go all the way down Walnut to Mission, and even coming down Mission, crossing down that way just gets really sketchy for young kids riding their bikes.
It's not comfortable.
Yeah, but then you said, who suggests a different route, and that was news for me.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of give a little shout out to an organization called Bike Fremont. So they're like a local advocacy organization, and there's another one called Bike East Bay that's also kind of on a more broad level. But Bike Fremont, we were just talking about that, and the route they recommended, and it was shared for the Niles Canyon Stroll and Roll, was if you're going from like the BART area, from Fremont BART, if you go, instead of going down Mission or going down Maury or any of those other routes, if you go on Walnut, past Mission, through Mission to where it becomes Morrison Canyon, and then you can go through like the Vallejo Mills area through that neighborhood and get out to Niles Canyon or to Niles. And it's it's a
and
little
then
bit
from
longer.
there you can catch like the Alameda Creek Trail or something from there.
Yeah, or you can just go down Niles Canyon into Niles. Yeah. It's longer, but at least it's a safe alternative. Yeah. And that's definitely something that like we have barriers in Fremont, right? We have the highways, we have the creek, we have railroads, and they kind of become these barriers that if we don't do anything about it, like it really narrows down the points where you can cross those barriers. Yeah,
that's cool. So kind of back to your story, you got from cycling to biking, and then but one of the things so when we ran into each other at Billy Roy's the other day, I found out that you're part of a commission, part of the city. What you're doing, volunteer work for the city. What exactly is that you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on an appointed commission called the Mobility Commission. So it's purely volunteer, no actual power, but it's appointed by the mayor of a citizen commission to kind of help promote. It's all forms of transportation. It's not just bikes. It's walking, bikes, transit, drivers, and people in like wheelchairs or other accessibility issues. And we meet with the city staff, and we share our thoughts, our opinions, our experiences. We have some input into things that happen. What projects get prioritized, that sort of thing. And I'm feel very lucky to be on that on that commission, and what did it look like, or what was it exactly that got you to the point where you're like, I want to be involved in a commission like this? It started when I moved out of my mom's house, and moved to Brookvale with my girlfriend, and it was just an area that was very slightly more dense, more things around that I could walk to or bike to. I started biking to the train station to go to work in San Jose, and I kind of just started noticing a lot more riding on like a bike, not cycling. And I want to be clear, not everyone makes that same distinction, and I do both.
I'm glad that you do. I'm glad that you do.
I wear Lycra on the weekends, and I ride at 20 miles an hour, and then I put on a t-shirt, and on Monday I'm riding my bike to work. But I started noticing those kind of things like, hey, there's a gap in this bike lane. Like, this bike lane just ends when we're coming up to this intersection, or hey, the way this is designed is it's not safe, or someone drew it up and they thought it was good, but no one actually ever test rode it after they built it, and hey, this actually doesn't work very well, or there's all these sorts of things, right, that I just started noticing. I started having suggestions, and I started kind of participating in all those community outreach events and surveys, and the city does a pretty good job of doing community outreach at all these sort of events, the Fremont Arts and Wine Festival or whatever, and I started just talking to them, asking questions, kind of getting more involved. I started going to like city council meetings and that sort of thing. And,
Good. That's cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's great. So then the opportunity came up for you to be on this commission then.
Yeah. One of the people I know pretty well, who's the mother of a bike racer.
Okay.
She was on the commission, and she was moving to Sunol, and she was like, "Hey, this slot's opening up. You should apply for it." And I did. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, I think you'll have to share some of what we talked about with whoever. I think it's great that people who are really truly invested and people who've are not just don't just have opinions, but actually are the people out there riding their bikes, are people in those positions to be able to help make help influence those decisions that are being made. So I think that's really cool. If you need help navigating the local real estate market, contact Petrocelli Homes on Niles Boulevard. Jennifer helps her clients make smart real estate decisions that benefit them in the long run. Reach out to Jennifer today and discover why Petrocelli Homes is the right choice for all of your real estate needs.
Fremont Bank has been around for 60 years, and they sponsor a lot of stuff. And now, included on the list of things they sponsor is this podcast. Thank you, Fremont Bank. Hey, Ricky. So you're going to want to get onto Walnut, and you're going to want to head toward the hub. Use the bike path to go past the BART station, and then you'll go past the Kaiser and the Rayleigh Shopping Center. Then you'll cross over the intersection, and you'll pass by the Smart and Final Shopping Center. Keep going over one more intersection, and you'll be able to turn right onto the State Street Plaza, go through it, and that will put you out on State Street. Go up State Street for just a little bit, and then turn left onto Capitol Avenue. And that is the best way to bike to one of our sponsors, Banter Bookshop, on Capitol Avenue in downtown Fremont.
There's actually a local bike racing team in Fremont called Team Fremont.
Okay.
And they were kind of recruiting, new riders, and they're like, "Hey, you're into cycling, like, come join us." And we're definitely like amateur level, not not pro pro racers or anything.
Right.
But I started riding with them, and I'm still with them to this day.
Wow, that's cool.
So I raced bikes from like 14 or 15 until I was like 18 or 19. So I was racing. I mean, bike racing was brutal. Like, I was training 6 days a week.
Wow.
To keep up in like the lowest level, like amateur.
How old
races.
were you when you were doing that?
In high school, like 15 to like 18 or 19.
Wow.
It was crazy. I love bike racing.
Okay.
It's probably the most difficult, most like exhilarating thing I've ever done, right? Like, you're shoulder to shoulder with like 40 other people going like 25, 30 miles an hour through corners.
What's the biggest race you've done? Like
in terms of like the most people or the most
the race that you look at and you're like, that's like my pinnacle so far. Like, that was the race that I felt like this was just an awesome experience, or just felt, I don't know. It's the one that you want to tell people about first.
Oh man. So I would say, how about this? The only race I've actually won.
Okay.
Because I was never actually all that good.
Okay.
I was very into it.
Yeah,
I loved it, but I wasn't like, to be a successful bike racer is pure genetics. But
it's probably true.
It was down in Salinas, and it was a criterium, which is like a type of race where you're basically on like a short course. I mean, like a mile long or so, and you're doing laps for like, it's like an hour or so, as opposed to like a road race, which is like a longer, 50-mile loop or 100-mile, point-to-point race, that type of thing. So it was flat, laps around, some abandoned business park or something.
Okay.
It's usually nowhere exciting. Sometimes they're cool downtown criteriums, but this one was kind of boring.
Yeah.
And as on a whim, right, being like the immature 17-year-old, I was like, I'm just gonna gun it off the line, just to play around. It wasn't anything that like I wasn't. Those types of moves do not win, right? Okay. You don't win.
That's right.
By like sprinting from the line. But somehow, no one reacted in time, and I got away, and I held that lead. It was 30 seconds, right? And when you're in cycling, like if you're not drafting behind someone, you're at a huge disadvantage. So a big group of people there's one person in the wind. It's kind of like a flock of birds, right?
Sure.
You're much more efficient than a solo rider that's ahead of you. And somehow I just kept it going for 45 minutes or however long it was, and they were barely right behind me. I could see the front of the chase group around the corner every time I was on a long straight piece of road, and they got closer and closer, and the last lap they were right on me, and somehow I still eked out a win. But that was probably a highlight. Yeah. I've done some cool races. There's some road races around that are in really scenic, mountain areas.
Sure.
There's another cool criterium in San Francisco on, tight streets, on a tight course. Anything with hills.
That's cool.
It's always a lot of fun.
So my brothers and I, so I have two brothers. One is about 7 years younger than me, and then one's almost 15 years younger than me. And we found ourselves quite a while back. It's actually been 7 years because I just saw Google Photos memories pop up and remind me that this was 7 years ago. But we wanted to visit all of California's national parks in 9 days. So it was 8 national parks in 9 days. We wanted to do this massive road trip. And we started, it was very ambitious, and we could have done it. We had it planned out well. It's just that when we got about 4 parks into it, we realized that we were not really able to enjoy the parks themselves. We were just driving the whole time. We'd get to the campsites late at night, and then we would get up and do an early hike, and then we'd head out. But we brought our bikes with us as well. So anyway, we ended up doing 6 of the 8 national parks. So we did Redwood National Park, Lassen Volcanic National Park, Yosemite, Sequoia Kings Canyon, Channel Islands, and then Pinnacles. Mm-hmm. And we decided to go back later and do Death Valley and Joshua Tree. But we... It's stupid is very stupid. But when we went to Death Valley, and I don't know if you've been there, if anybody, people listening have been there, but we went to Death Valley. There's this place where you can enter the valley when you going down into Badwater Basin. And it's this 16-mile downhill ride from the top, and you're just going all the way, you're just going downhill for forever. And my brothers got on the bikes and they just rode downhill. And they were not good bikes as far as they're road worthy and stuff. And my brothers were not wearing helmets. I mean, it was all the dangerous things that we could have done. And I actually have it on a time lapse video of coming down from this high part all the way down into Badwater, about 16 miles of just downhill coasting. And
that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, they did it, not me. I just filmed them, so I had it on record in case something happened to them. So, you said you grew up on Mission near Morrison Canyon?
Yeah, right off of Morrison Canyon.
Okay.
Lived there since I was 5. My parents moved here right before I was born.
Okay, from Russia.
Yeah, from Russia.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
What brought them here?
Opportunity.
Work.
Yeah, work.
Okay.
I mean, Russia in the 90s wasn't exactly right. Well, it wasn't a great place to be.
That's right. Yeah. So have you ever visited Russia then?
Oh yeah. I used to visit every other year up until it got
really sketchy.
A little bit. Yeah. Not the best place to be now either.
Okay.
So I haven't been back in about a decade, but I speak fluent Russian. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. When you were living off of near Morrison Canyon, what do you remember as being enjoyable about that neighborhood to live in?
One thing I really liked about the neighborhood was, it was really quiet, not a lot of things going on, really residential, but the abandoned railroad tracks that go up from, they go that big bridge across Mission, and then, it goes out north up to Niles Canyon, and there's no tracks there anymore. It's been abandoned for forever, but it's an unofficial walking trail.
That's cool.
It's right by my house.
That's cool.
My old house, and really love that.
When I was a little kid, so I was born in Wisconsin and lived there till I was about 9 or 10. But there was a railroad tracks that was near my house that we would go. So there was a store that we would go get our groceries at, and we would walk up the road from our house and take the railroad tracks on. They were not abandoned. So there were many times that my parents would be like, okay, get off the tracks. And we'd have to get off in order for the trains to go by. But we didn't have to, in order to get to the grocery store, we didn't have to stay on the tracks very long. But I do remember as a child, like the railroad tracks being a fun place to like take a walk as a family, to go to the store and stuff. But you had the fortune of not having abandoned railroad tracks to walk on. So that's great.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your life, how you grew up here in Fremont. What were some of the things, that brought you into REI when I first met you? And then let's go from there.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Fremont. I feel like I had a pretty normal childhood, all things considered. When we met at REI, I was at Ohlone College, and I was working at Campo de Bocce right across the street from REI.
Oh, yeah.
At the Italian restaurant Bocce Place. It's unfortunately closed now. And just like REI is now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. It's
pour one out for that.
Yeah. So you worked there at Campo de Bocce.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just while I was in college, while I was at Ohlone, and I was just on a huge hiking and backpacking and
all the stuff,
all kick. Yeah, I was just on all of that.
Where did you like to go? What were some of your favorite places to hike or backpack?
I mean, all time go is Mission Peak.
Okay.
I got it. Like I know some people hate it. Some people, it's hot.
Yeah.
Not a lot of shade.
Yeah.
It gets windy at the top, but
I think a lot of those,
it's amazing.
Well, the wind maybe not so much, but I was going to say a lot of those other things are due to the people's choices as to what time they go.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because I've been there in all those conditions as well, but I think most of the time, if I was ever up there in a hot, exposed day, it was because I made the bad choice of leaving late in the daytime when it was going to be hot anyway. So.
Yeah, you gotta go early in the morning. You gotta go on a weekday if you can. You gotta go maybe sometimes even in the evening. It's good.
Yeah, that's right.
It can be a good time.
Actually, there was this is another rabbit trail, but there was a Russian group that used to meet up there like on Wednesday nights. It was
dude.
Did you go there?
So I've been there once, but my mom is not like the lead organizer or anything, but she's like part of the core group there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah. No, I just kind of put it all together just a moment, because there was one time I was hiking back and all these people were going up, and I was like, man, I feel like all these people are Russian. And then I stopped one of them, and I was like, they're like, yeah, we go up there. I think at the time, this was years ago, but it was like at the time it was like every Wednesday night they'd go up there, and
it's still going.
Is it?
Oh, every Wednesday. I mean, I don't want to say rain or shine, but those Russians are crazy, man.
So what do they do? Like, what is that?
They go up there. The little bathroom where the two trails merge. Yeah. There's like some benches there. Yeah. They bring a bunch of food up. They play like guitars and sing songs and like.
That is so cool.
It's wild. It's crazy. It makes no sense, but.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when you were saying Mission Peak and you're Russian, I was like, wait a minute, I have a vague memory of that. That's funny. I'll have to go up there on a Wednesday night. We'll have to get some footage for the podcast of them up there.
Yeah, I don't know what time the park technically closes. So no one said anything.
That's right. Well, the thing is there's actually and I've never actually camped there, but there is backpacking campground campsite like right behind the peak. Like I think it's called like Eagle
Spring, I think.
Something like that. Yeah.
I've actually camped there.
Oh, okay.
How
was that?
Part of it is amazing. Part of the reason I like Mission Peak so much is because it's actually the first part of my favorite backpacking trip, which is
the
Ohlone Trail to Del Valle. Yeah.
And have you done that a couple times? Or?
Yeah, I've done it. I've done it twice. I've done it once solo in 2 days, like one night, and then I went with some friends for 2 nights. Okay. Over 3 days.
I think I was just talking with some friends about this. So this is one of the things that I did when I worked for REI, is I would help everyone get ready for their trips wherever they would go. And so I'd pull out a map and plan it. I think I planned a number of trips for people doing the Ohlone Wilderness Trail. And you can go from Del Valle to Sunol, or all the way to Mission Peak, or you can do the opposite. You can go from Mission Peak all the way out to Del Valle.
I've done it from Mission Peak to Del Valle both times, but I kind of want to I was actually thinking about doing it this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
and then it rained, so
Yeah.
I was like, no. So instead,
Saturday was horrible.
Yeah, it was terrible.
So I was actually camping at Del Val.
Really?
On we went out Thursday night, and I had campsite for Thursday and Friday night at Del Val, and we stayed late Thursday night or Friday night. But I had been looking at the forecast, and I was like, I'm not going to be packing up in the rain. So we stayed Thursday night and then late Friday night, and then got out before the park closed. And then it poured rain on Saturday. But yeah, I don't think I'd want to go in the rain either. So.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of crazy.
So the Ohlone Wilderness Trail, you can get there from Mission Peak. And I've never done it, but I've seen pictures and I've talked to people who've done it. What are some of your favorite things about that trail?
I mean, I like, first of all, how close it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to drive 3 hours out to wherever to go on a backpacking trip. That just doesn't seem fun to me.
Yeah.
I like being able to just like basically, go right outside and start hiking.
That's right.
I love that it starts with a big challenge, right? You start with Mission Peak. It's a nice little intro to it. And I love just how freaking empty it is. Like once you're out there, once you're past Snow Regional Wilderness, it's just, I literally, the first time I went solo. I don't think I spoke or saw a single person for like over 24 hours.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. I camped like right in Snow, and I woke up and I like basically after Snow Regional Wilderness, you don't see anyone until you're right at right at the lake in Del Val.
That's cool.
And that's awesome because you're right there. You're you can see your house from there basically.
That's
and
awesome.
It's middle of nowhere.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think the two things that I would note in case anybody's listening to this and gets the idea that they want to go, which I think they should, but number one, it is those campsites you have to get registrations for, so you can't just like, I'm going to go tonight and go without preparation. I think they've changed it to an online service. Well, kind of.
I would say the only way you can do it if you don't have a reservation is you're ready to go 30 miles in one day.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
actually is, they do an ultra marathon, or at least they did.
I remember that.
They used to do an event. From Mission Peak to Del Val.
That's right.
In one day, and my mom actually did that.
Oh wow, man, your mom, she's like
she's
leading
crazy.
all the Russian crazies, and then also running. That's awesome.
Yeah, her first ultra marathon was more or less on a whim, and the longest run she did before that was a half marathon.
Wow, that's really cool. That's I think that's a great trail. Yeah, I actually had a friend of mine that did it in one day because she wanted to do it as like a personal challenge. I think she was turning 30 or something like that. She was like, "This is my goal. I want to do the Ohlone Wilderness Trail in one day." So I think from Del Val to Sunol is about 22 miles, and then I think the extra, I think it's an extra like 6 or 7 miles to Mission Peak. So I think it's like overall like it's 28 miles. I think if you want to do the
28
whole thing.
is what I saw on the map. I think once you actually do it and you zigzag a little bit, you can get to 30 pretty easily. Yeah, but it's right around there. So that's good. 3-day hike if you're a moderate hiker, I think is great.
Okay, very cool. I'm gonna kind of wrap things up a little bit, but I was gonna just kind of go a little bit different direction, and I'm kind of curious. So I find that a lot of people move to the Bay Area for tech jobs. I find that a lot of people come from all over the world to come here to work for tech jobs. And then I find that there are, I think it's interesting to talk to people who've grown up here and who've been here for a long period of time. I know that your parents, you said your parents moved here before you were born for opportunity that maybe they didn't have in Russia, or more of an opportunity that they would have here than they did in Russia. But I always find it interesting to hear what it was like for for kids who grew up here. And I think there's two parts to this question that I'm getting to is that you don't have to get into what you do for work or whatever, but you do work in the tech industry. Broadly speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just find it interesting that a lot of times people grow up here and tech is not what they pursue growing up here. Like, they'll find retail work, or they'll, maybe service industry or whatever. What was it that got you into what you're doing now? And then I think secondly, I think one of the other, maybe I should, wait and ask the second part of this question, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there so you can be thinking about it. I think it's people your age, kind of that millennial generation, the younger, the 20s to early 30s. I find that they, when we've asked around, we've done a minimal surveys or minimal conversations with people. They don't find Fremont to be a great place to stay and to I think Fremont ends up being a great place for families, kind of like maybe older parents, middle-aged parents and then young kids. But when you get into that millennial age, Gen Z age, like I feel like a lot of those people your age just don't end up staying around Fremont. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about, like, what is it that got you into doing tech, broadly speaking? And then what is it that you feel about being somebody your age living here in Fremont?
Yeah, I grew up always being a tech-minded person, right? I was, I don't remember a time where I wasn't into technology of some sort. So it came naturally to me, I think, wanting to do something, related to tech. I, found my passion at Ohlone College with like networking. So like, making the internet work. It's
awesome.
Not to oversimplify, but I basically do that, but for a tech company, at events and at their events and trade shows and that sort of thing. So I get to travel quite a bit, which is nice. I think what kind of what's kept me in Fremont so far is obviously like family, right? Like my grandparents live here, my mom lives here, all my friends live here. So I think that's a big part of it. Like I would love to, move to somewhere else and, kind of experience that, but I love Fremont, right? Like it is quiet, but also like BART's right here and I can go to SF whenever I want. Yeah. Or down to Oakland or San Jose or whatever. Yeah. Like it's not too far from anything. And it is, pretty quiet and calm. Yeah. For the most part.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of those opinions probably depend on the type of environment that people are looking for. If you are looking for something that's always hopping and always you have many options to choose from and you can, do all these things. I think that Fremont does have options, and I think there are great places for people to enjoy being, out and about in Fremont. But I think if you're looking for like a city life like San Francisco, you're not going to get it. But like you said, you're close enough to where you can go downtown San Francisco or you can go downtown San Jose and enjoy being in those kind of communities.
Yeah. Fremont's pretty quiet for the size of city that it is.
Sure.
But like it beats your sleepy, suburb that doesn't even allow commercial buildings at all, right? They're just purely residential, right? Just like houses after houses, right? It's got character, it's got, culture, it's got, all these things going for it. I think still, even though I guess if you were comparing it to, a city that's been around for longer, that's more urban, it doesn't quite compare, but I don't think it needs to, right? It's not everyone wants that. And I love that. Like I consider myself an urbanist, in every sense of that word. I love being able to visit, Europe for work, where I can, be in these like super dense cities that are super lively and bustling. But like I think Fremont's great too.
Yeah, that's great. So, I guess maybe final question, like what, as you look forward to the life ahead, the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, what is it that you hope to do? What would you like to accomplish with your life? What would you enjoy? Maybe let's just say you stayed in Fremont long term. Like what are some of the things that you would love to see happen around here?
I would love to kind of see a city that's more, less car centric. I think that's something that'd be great for me personally. I love that, but I think it'd be great for just our community, our society as a whole, right? Having more places that we can meet and gather and enjoy our life in. I think we are on our way to being a very safe city in terms of our streets. We're doing a great job. We're already a very safe city compared to the people around us,
right?
But I think continuing on that path, and I would love to see more more options for transit, right? I like our bus system is Not very good. Not very great.
It's true.
No, you're not going to use it unless you're
stuck.
Unless that's your only option.
Yeah.
Although I did actually take it to Mission Peak this weekend.
Oh, okay.
I live right on Fremont Boulevard, and
Nice.
Took me all the way to Mission Peak. So
That's great.
I try to use the bus.
Nice.
Sometimes, but I think we need more options too.
Yeah.
I was just in a city in Germany for work last month, and it's a city slightly larger than Fremont, but they've got a full metro and tram system everywhere. Yeah, and it's like, well, why can't we have that in Fremont?
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah, I actually the other night it was cold and windy, and my wife was trying to get some stuff done at the house, trying to clean up a little bit. My son was kind of reading, and then I have almost a 2-year-old, so not quite 2 years old, but he was super rambunctious, and my wife was like, maybe you could do something with him, and it was cold and windy outside, so he wanted to go outside, and the space inside was a little too small. So I just said, let's go for a train ride. Let's just go. He loves Thomas the Train. And so I was like, let's just go for a train ride. So we rode over to the BART station and hopped on the train. And I was like, I don't even know where we're going. Like, I don't know what we're going to do, but all I know is that we're going to ride on a train and he's going to love it. And, so we hopped on. This was like 6:00 at night. So, 2 hours before sunset. And we have some friends that live in San Jose down by Japantown. And at first I was like, I'm going to go down to the Embarcadero, go down to San Francisco, and then come back, and just ride the train back and forth and point out all the cool things on the way down there. Anyway, we ended up going down to San Jose to our friend's house, and I rode the BART that, here I am with my toddler. We rode from Fremont Station down to Milpitas, and then hopped on the VTA and took that over toward Great America, and then got on another VTA and went down to Japantown. It took us, I don't know, maybe an hour and 20 minutes to get there, but we rode the whole way and had a good old time. It took a lot of time, but it was I think it was a lot of fun being able to just say, I took my baby in a train down to San Jose, and then we spent some time with them, maybe an hour down there, and it was dark by the time we left the house. And so they were like, do you want us to just take you to the Berryessa BART station, and that way you can just shoot back up to Fremont? I was like, oh man, that would save a lot of time. Yeah. And so anyway, they gave us a ride over to Berryessa, and we rode up. But I do think that having that transit infrastructure, whether it's a BART or whatever it is around here, would be fantastic. And I think maybe stepping up the bus opportunities as well would be really good.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't wait for the San Jose extension of BART. Right once it goes into downtown,
they're going right down to San Pedro Square, I think. Right?
They're going through downtown all the way to Diridon Station, which is like the main train station. Where
Amtrak,
Caltrain, Amtrak.
Yep.
You can go anywhere.
That's cool.
From there. Yeah,
that'd be great.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's great. Daniel, thanks for joining me, man. This has been really cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been good catching up with you from years ago, and hopefully it's not years before we see each other again. We get to cross paths along the way. So thanks for joining me.
Keep in touch.
This episode was hosted and produced by Ricky B. I'm Gary Williams. Andrew Cavett is the...
We had to catch one more thing before we go.
Yeah, I'm like Steve Jobs. One more thing. If it's still May when this comes out, happy Bike Month, everyone. May is Bike Month, and City of Fremont, does some cool things for that.
What are some of the things that come to your mind that people could take advantage of for that?
3 things. First of all, actually today is a city council meeting where they're going to do a quick ceremony for celebrating Bike Month.
Okay.
This Saturday, May 11th. I don't know if it's too late.
You know what? I'm planning on putting this out on May 10th. So
okay, perfect.
Yeah. So people are listening to it when it comes out on May 10th. Then they can catch this.
Perfect. May 11th, there is a ribbon cutting ceremony for Fremont's latest protected intersection at Liberty Street and Walnut Avenue.
Okay.
As part of the extension of Walnut out towards Fremont. So that's exciting. I think that's in the morning. And there's a bit of a bike ride tour of bike infrastructure as part of that. I think info's on the city website. And May 16th is Bike to Wherever Day.
Nice.
Formerly known as Bike to Work Day.
Yes, bike to wherever. That's
for
great.
those who still bike to work.
Yeah.
Or anywhere.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well,
Cool.
that's good. Happy Bike Month.
Yeah, happy Bike Month.
Yeah. Enjoy getting out and finding places.
Scheduling and pre-interviews by Sarah S. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you listen so you don't miss an episode. You can find everything we make, the podcast, and all of our social media links at thefremontpodcast.com. Join us next week on The Fremont Podcast.
This is a Muggins Media podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Fremont Podcast. If you are an individual or a business that would like to be a sponsor partner on the podcast, please reach out at thefremontpodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, thefremontpodcast.com, and you can reach out to us through our contact form. Thank you for listening, thank you for sharing, and thank you for your support.